In this lesson, we're going to be creating this fun button interaction that moves within 3D space and follows your cursor. So let's get into it. We'll open up the Interactions panel and we'll make sure we're using interactions with GSAP. And we're going to create a new mouse move trigger. Mouse move allows us to animate based on where the user's cursor is positioned over an element or even over the viewport itself. So we're going to be animating the button, but we're going to set the trigger to the 3D hitbox element. This is the parent container of the button, and it's a little bit bigger than the button itself. We've put a border on it so we can see the trigger area. Setting a larger interactive area around the element that you want to animate will make the button itself feel like it's reacting to the cursor getting close to it, rather than just animating when it's over the button. If we look in our mouse move interaction, there are 3 options here. We've got mouse X actions, mouse Y actions, and interval actions. We're going to use mouse X and mouse Y for this animation. Let's set up mouse X first. So we'll add an animate action to animate on the X axis. That's horizontal, and we'll rename this action X. We don't want the target on the hitbox, so let's change the target here to the button, the 3D button, and we'll make sure we're animating the button within the trigger element. We'll remove the properties that we don't need for now, and we'll use move X to animate from -1.5 rem and to 1.5 rem. So our button will animate the same amount in both directions. Now, if we preview this on the timeline, that's what we want. And if we move our mouse over the hitbox with the timeline open, you can see that as we move our mouse from left to right, the timeline's scrubbing through and the button's animating along the x-axis. Now, you might have noticed that when we move our mouse out of the hitbox area, the button doesn't go back to the center. Instead, it animates over to the left. So let's go back and open our trigger settings to find out why this is happening. If we look at the bottom of the trigger, you'll see that the rest state for X and Y are set to 0%. So this means when we move our mouse out of the hitbox, the animation will return to the beginning of the animation, when the animation is at 0%. So for our use case, we want the rest state to be right in the middle at a neutral position. So let's set this up to be 50% for both X and Y, which will be the center of the animation that we're making. Let's go out of our trigger settings and move our mouse over the hitbox again. So now when we leave the hitbox, the button returns to the center. Looks good. So next, let's set up an animation on the Y axis now. We'll call this one Y, and we want to make sure that we're targeting the same element again, so the 3D button within the 3D hitbox. This time we'll use move Y to animate the same distance as our X action, so that's from -1.5 rem to 1.5 rem on the Y axis. If we scrub through this on the timeline, we can see that the button's moving just as we want, and then if we mouse over the hitbox area, we can see both the X and Y animations working together. Wonderful! Now, although these action groups are called mouse X actions and mouse Y actions, we aren't just limited to animating X and Y. We can animate any of the surface properties in reaction to our mouse movement on both of these axes. So let's go into our X action and we'll choose a rotate Y property. We'll animate this between -20 and 20 degrees, so the button's rotating on the Y axis. And this looks okay, but we want this animation to exist in 3D space. So we're going to add a perspective. Perspective is a CSS property that creates a sense of depth. The lower the value, the more intense the effect, and the higher the value, the more subtle. There's a from and to column here because you can actually animate perspective. Let's have a little look at that for fun. So we'll add 100 in the from column and 900 in the to column. Let's mouse over the hitbox again. So you can see that the perspective is nice and subtle when we mouse into the right side of the hitbox. But as we move over to the left, it gets more and more and more pronounced until the button's bursting out of the box towards us.
Cassie, don't panic, but the button is literally escaping my screen here.
Yeah, it's a little bit much. So let's set both values to 900 so we get a nice, consistent, subtle animation. We'll do the same on our Y axis. We'll leave this action and we'll go back into our Y action. We'll add a rotate X property and set it to rotate 20 degrees in the from column and -20 degrees in the to column. We don't need to define perspective here because we're animating the same element and we already defined perspective in the X action. So let's head over to our preview mode and we'll check out our animation. And that looks great. And that's creating a 3D button interaction using the mouse move trigger in Webflow interactions powered by GSAP.